News Desk edition, broadcasting live January 28th, 2026. And there are some things to catch up on. There was a surprise David Cross and Peter Banks release titled The Other Horizon. And I also want to remind people to submit their fan submissions to the Gottlieb Brothers' Yesstuff 4 book. There are some updates from Oliver Wakeman on what he's been up to music-wise, and some interesting posts he's been making, which are really cool. So I'll just go ahead and get into it right now. So first off, the Gottlieb Brothers book, Yesstuff 4, part of their Yes-related compendium series. This one is slated to come out sometime later this year, I believe, but in either case, the deadline for this one is January 31st. I think at 11:59, maybe. Well, just, yeah, it'll say here on GottliebBros.com, but here it is, a compendium of Yes fans by Yes fans. You can just click here to be part of it, and it explains everything here, what you can submit, a photo, an artwork, stuff from your, it could be a Yes cave, it could be your personal writing or your first Yes record or a Yes tattoo. And yeah, it's as simple as that. Just go to GottliebBros.com. January 31st is a submission deadline, so that's this Saturday. We wanted to give you all a heads up in case there are any last minute submissions. Dad and I will I'll talk with Dad and see if there's anything he wants to submit. I know there's something I want to try to submit. It's just been super busy on my end, but the submission deadline is in our sites, so just lock in and get in the book with your submission. All right, so do check that out. Again, that's at GottliebBros.com. And Miguel Bass also posted about how he received one of the Yesstuff books. I believe this was the second one, the concert posters. And he also posted about another play along, this time of the Ancient, or part of it anyway. But yeah, check out those books, check out those videos. And speaking of tales, I did see there was an article by Sid Schwartz, who did the liner notes for the upcoming Tales from Topographic Ocean Super Deluxe Edition, which comes out just next week, February 6th. So, get those orders in. And in this article, Sid mentioned some interesting stuff, like the detective work that it took in figuring out when certain live recordings that are on this box set are from. I mentioned Forgotten Yesterdays, and Forgotten Yesterdays, such a huge source when it comes to Yes concerts and records regarding Yes concerts. And Sid also made a funny comparison where saying that Yes fans are the Trekkies of prog rock, which I think is pretty appropriate because, Trekkies, they're really great fans, really great to hang out with and talk about Star Trek with. But there are also some who, when they don't enjoy certain things, instead of just scrolling by, they feel the need to halt and comment and say something mean and whatnot. And it's just, yeah, kind of similar energy there. Yes fandom is great, but in any fandom, there are those individuals here and there, which is unfortunately to be expected. But yeah, I just wish people would just be kinder, nicer. Good faith criticism is fine, but just, yeah, I've probably lectured on and on about this stuff over and over. But I also saw that Andy Graziano, of course, the guitarist for John Anderson and the Band Geeks, recently opened for the band Nectar. on January 23rd and 24th and played a solo set which included Steve Howe's Mood for a Day. There's even a video clip posted of him playing it, and he played it really well, really did justice to the piece there. And Nectar, a really cool band. Their drummer, Jay Didymo, Dad interviewed him, it might have been 2 years ago now. I don't know. It's kind of tough to keep track of like when some of these interviews took place, but yeah, really cool band. And as for another band geek, Richie Castellano posted a throwback photo to when he met John Anderson at the NAMM show in the 1990s. And speaking of the NAMM show, which of course happened recently, and that's why there have been posts here and there about it, this reminded me that there was someone shared a video clip from the NAMM show in about 2007, I think it was. It might have been the winter NAMM show. Like, I don't know if it was December or January, but yeah, I think from 2007. And it showed John Anderson and Bob Weir of the Grateful Dead doing a kind of a guitar duet at the NAMM show. John singing Don't Think Twice, which was one of his solo pieces. It's on his Tour of the Universe DVD. But yeah, that was nice to see, especially, Bob Weir having recently been departed. So, seeing that little moment where they're playing together is really nice. Trevor Horn's Facebook page has continued releasing clips. There was one of him rehearsing the track Two Tribes with Lol Cream. And there was also one where they talked about the origin of the art of noise. And on the Alan White Facebook page, there was a post about Blue Thunder, which is a 32-piece drumline for the Seattle Seahawks. It's football related, and Alan was really into Blue Thunder and all of that. So really cool to see a post about that. Symphonic Live. Now, last time we were on here, Dad and I interviewed Bob Cesca about the recently re-released Yes Symphonic Live. And so far, I have received the Blu-ray CD pack that I ordered. It's in this nice feeling box. It's got art cards in it, and it's got a booklet that has words from Bob Cesca about the project. I have yet to devote time to watch the Blu-ray and listen to the CDs. So what I'm thinking is, when the vinyl comes as well, I'm going to do a Steven's Vinyl Adventures episode, which will focus on the vinyl version, but also I'll fold in my thoughts on the Blu-ray CD and whatnot. The different versions of Symphonic Live. So that'll be interesting. I want to make sure I devote a good amount of time to that, give it its own spotlight, and I'll take photos and stuff and do like a slideshow. So speaking of Bob, after we interviewed him, one of the things he mentioned was having done the art for a proposed third Conspiracy album, the Billy Sherwood and Chris Squire band. And it would have been called PSYOP, and he sent us the artwork. So I'll go ahead and show that to all of you right now. I'll just present the image and screen share it. And this is really has the sci-fi element. It's like some sort of cybernetic person. It looks really cool. It fits with the vibes of Conspiracy, and man, it would have been nice to have had a third Conspiracy album, because when Chris and Billy worked together, like, they were on fire. They were great with that stuff. But yeah, it's really nice to have these things to look back at. This is from 2006. Now, next up, we have Billy Sherwood recently did an interview with Film Music Channel. He said that he talked a little bit about the new Yes album, and there's a moment that I heard him say it would be out early next year. He said that in the interview, but I wonder if he might have misspoke because everything else we've been seeing has been saying like, "Oh, come out this year, maybe in the spring, like April or May." So yeah, I do kind of wonder if maybe he misspoke there, and yeah, I don't know, but he talked about he talked about the upcoming tour, the Fragile UK tour, and they'll also be hitting other European stops like Paris and the Netherlands. Looking at the site, I'm actually looking at yesworld.com right now, and yeah, they're touring the UK from April 22nd through May 4th, and then May 6th they're in Tivoli, or that's a venue, which is in Vredenburg, Netherlands, and then on May 7th they're in the Olympia, which is in Paris, France. And he mentioned there will be a Japan tour after that. So I would guess maybe that'll be in June if I had to guess, maybe July at the latest. I feel like those tend to be not too far apart, but I guess we'll see. But yeah, go to yesworld.com, find the date and venue, and book a ticket if you're around that part of the world. The Netherlands, I actually saw that there was a Yes tribute band called Yes Shows had a show recently, and I think they're performing again March 14th. And again, I think they're based in the Netherlands. I saw that Andio and Yes also performed in Belgium recently. And while we're talking about Yes tribute bands, Fragile have their album The Last Haven coming out, expected early next year, 2027. So that, at least I know for sure, is said to have come out early next year, and that's the aim for it. And of course, check out Total Mass Retain, their upcoming tour, playing the Yes album and Close to the Edge. Check out their shows, and check out any of these Yes tribute bands that are active, might be near you, or maybe you'll travel to them if it's convenient. Always great to have people playing Yes music. But Billy also mentioned he's working with someone named Josh Gill over in London. So he's definitely keeping busy. And over on his Facebook page, he shared a clip of the Fish from the YouTube theater show, which was the Yes show I went to last year. I think that was in November, if I remember correctly. So really cool. That was a great show. I really enjoyed myself at that show. Now, next up, this was really surprising. I found out about this via the Remembering Peter Banks Facebook page, and I'll go ahead and share the cover image for this. This was David Cross and Peter Banks album called The Other Horizon. Now, you may remember several years ago, there was an album featuring them titled was it Crossover or Crossroads? I think it was, well, it's in this blurb that I have in front of me, so why don't I just read that? And the color palette for this is also reflective of the other album. So right here it says, David Cross and Peter Banks Musical Estate are pleased to announce the release of The Other Horizon, featuring unreleased and alternate tracks from the crossover sessions. The tracks include guest appearances by Tony Kaye, Billy Sherwood, Oliver Wakeman, and Jay Shellen. The digital-only release features 3 previously unreleased tracks and 2 alternate versions. So the track list here, it's 5 tracks and they're about half an hour. So I guess, technically qualifying as an album, but they are Upslide, which is previously unreleased, The Other Horizon, also previously unreleased, Upshift, which is an alternate mix, The Work Alone, and in parentheses it says The Work Within without sound effects. So, comparing to that other album. And Around the Corner, which is previously unreleased. This was produced and mixed by Tony Lowe, mastered by Mike Pietrini, and the artwork is by Mike Inns, and project management by Daniel Earnshaw. So this album has, the same vibes as Crossover. It's worth the listen. It feels very psychedelic. It reminds me of some of those psychedelic bands of the 60s, early 70s, and it feels very David and Peter. And again, you get to hear these other Yes members, and it's really cool instrumental stuff, very jazzy moments. It's great. I kind of wonder if this might ever get a physical release, or I guess it says digital only, so maybe there aren't plans for it to be released on physical. But it's on YouTube, Spotify, and Apple Music. So I do kind of wonder if if it gets like a ton of streams, if that could inspire a physical release maybe, or if it's just, this is something for everyone to just, go ahead and listen to it, digitally on these services and whatnot. But in either case, I'm glad it exists, and it's definitely a companion piece to Crossover, I would say. So definitely check out that album as well. You could listen to these back to back, and it's of that same world, which is fitting because, the colors that are used here. All right, next up we have Oliver Wakeman news and highlights. So Oliver recently did a music update post where he mentioned that he's now continuing to work on the second Madrigal project record. He says, "It looks like I might be playing on most of the record this time around. The music is already sounding great." And he said that he and Rick this coming weekend are going to go through some of the material in preparation for the warm-up show on the 21st of February in Davis, and that the show has been sold out. And this, of course, referring to the Wakeman and Son tour. And he also said, "I have also just started to work with a new collaborator on a new project. Still in its early stage, though, but already feels very exciting." Yeah, I'm really curious, like, who this might be, but I'm sure we'll find out in time. And he also mentioned a real high point for me was also when someone wrote to me to say that the great Dennis DeYoung from Styx had put up a post about my Jabberwocky album following my post about the Styx record Man of Miracles. This was such a moment for me, having been a fan of Styx and Dennis since I was a teenager. At heart, I'm still that teenage music fan, even though somehow I seem to be in that world now. Yeah, that's really cool stuff. I think, did Tom Brislin work with Dennis DeYoung? I think he might have. Because, okay, yeah, I think he might have. I do remember, yeah, when he rehearsed some Styx music and sort of did live streams of that online. But yeah, so that's really cool. And of course, Tom, very busy with the band Kansas. It seems like they're just like always touring. And he recently made a post about how he rarely plays a keyboard that's not his, and took a picture with a Moog that he was using. So yeah, if Kansas is near you and you're a fan, check them out. And listen to some Styx as well, as I mentioned Styx here. But continuing with Oliver's highlights, he made a post about the ladder, and sort of mentioned the time period a little bit before the latter. He said, around 1997, I was hanging out a lot with Steve Howe, following him, hearing and liking my first solo album, Heaven's Isle. I was playing him some of the music from my upcoming Jabberwocky album. We were discussing my next solo record, The Three Ages of Magic, and starting to go through the music for that album. It was great and very collaborative, and Steve and I seemed to work well and had the same thoughts about music and arrangements we liked. During one of these meetings, Steve looked at me and said, I'm going to ask something a bit out there, but let me know what you think. We're going to have a dedicated keyboard player again. And Oliver notes here that Billy Sherwood had handled the keys on Open Your Eyes. But then Steve continued, would you mind if I threw your hat into the mix? And then Oliver says, I will slightly make that very taken aback. Sure, I stumbled out. He then said, Steve said, John has someone in mind, but let me have a chat and see what happens. And of course, the rest is history. We know they went with Igor. I guess this might have been before the Open Your Eyes tour, because that tour is when they, had Igor as the basically full-time keyboardist, and he'd also contributed to a couple of the tracks on Open Your Eyes. So maybe this was late into Open Your Eyes being made. But yeah, can you imagine like if Oliver had joined Yes even back then? And like I mentioned, he goes on to talk about the latter. He really likes New Language. That's a really bombastic track. But how different would things have been? I was trying to wonder to myself what would have happened. He would have learned the Yes material, done that tour, but if he had done that tour, we might not have had that one show where they had to call in Adam Wakeman because of Igor's visa problems. Maybe that wouldn't have been an issue, and we wouldn't have had Adam playing Starship Trooper in the Yes history. We would have had Oliver throughout the entire Open Your Eyes tour. And then the latter, how different would the latter have been? Maybe there would have been a couple different tracks here and there, because we know Oliver is a talented songwriter, so he very well could have presented a couple ideas to the band, and they would have been like, oh yeah, let's work on that. And maybe a few of the tracks would have been different pieces entirely, but who knows what tracks we would not have ended up with. And if he had stayed with the band through the Masterworks tour and then Magnification, like they probably wouldn't have gotten an orchestra for Magnification, and then we wouldn't have had that symphonic tour the way we had it, wouldn't have had Tom. And yeah, like who knows how much longer Oliver would have stayed, because in 2002, even before then, they wanted to bring back Rick at some point. But if they had Oliver, like, what would have happened? Would they have brought back Rick? Would they have stayed with Oliver? Eventually done From a Page, and then the Fly From Here stuff could have happened. Like, it's a big, like, what if? It's an interesting thing to think about. But anyway, some other stuff that Oliver posted about. Let's see. He talked about 90125 and how he really enjoyed it when he first listened to it and loved the track City of Love. So that'll sort of come up again. At some point, he posted about the Union album and how it was kind of a letdown. And he liked the Shock to the System and Dangerous from the ABWH sessions. And he liked the piano on Without Hope, You Cannot Start the Day, but thought it didn't sound like his dad, and realized years later that it wasn't him. But yeah, that was an interesting observation, because that piano bit isn't what you might typically think of when thinking of Rick playing piano. And he did say the second half of that track feels like a City of Love clone. And yeah, I definitely see that, the dun 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 dun. Like you could kind of argue that a bit of that second intended ABWH album felt like it was trying to be Yes West. But anyway, getting back to what Oliver said about Union, he said he liked the Yes West tracks, and he especially liked Billy's songwriting on The More We Live, Let Go. Um, yeah, it was such a great track. He's also talked about the Talk album, hearing Tony play on Hammond on stuff like The Calling, and how great that was. And he says, I know everyone loves Endless Dream. I think it's great, but I really loved Real Love. And, thinking about, City of Love, I feel like Real Love, this is me speaking, not Oliver, me, Stephen, kind of observing. I feel like Real Love is kind of the City of Love of the 90s. It's a similar vibe, but it doesn't feel like a clone necessarily, like that bit of Without Hope You Cannot Start the Day that Oliver mentioned. So that's interesting. And I do remember when Oliver talked about Big Generator, he on our show, he mentioned liking the aggression of certain parts of that. Um, if I remember correctly, you kind or he said something like you kind of need the anger in the mix, something like that. He talked about drama, and I was not that familiar with it, but remembered learning Machine Messiah and Tempest Fugit, and relayed a memory of Chris and figuring out the material. He also talked about Steve Howe's portraits of Bob Dylan and how even though, Oliver was not a Bob Dylan fan, no disrespect or anything. He just like never really got into him. When he listened to portraits of Bob Dylan, like he really admired the material. And more recently, he's talked about Yes songs and how great it was listening to that as a teenager and then getting to learn some of that material 20 years later. All right, so the rest of this broadcast is pretty much Asia related, but let me just see a comment from Gilly Good News saying, is that your house interior behind you, Stephen, or a stock image of 20th century Californian modern? It's just a virtual background. It looks better than if I just had my own room in the background. And I know it's been said that there should be more stuff like in the background of my room, but the way everything's arranged, it would just be really tough to accomplish. So it's just easier to use virtual backgrounds, and this is kind of a go-to. But yeah, thanks for tuning in as always. So I saw that the original Asia Facebook page posted this announcement about an exclusive auction that will be held at their charity warm-up show in Ras An Wai on the 30th of January. It says this will be a very special limited offer available only to attendees on the night. Following the event, we will share details on social media and open the offer to the wider public for a short, limited period. The Love, Hope, Strength Foundation. We're delighted to be supporting the Love, Hope, Strength Foundation, the cancer charity dedicated to saving lives one concert at a time. All proceeds from our fundraiser for Love, Hope, Strength will fund additional equipment and cancer care programs in the UK and access to treatment for patients from underserved communities in Africa and Asia, the continent, they mean there. Jules Peters, president and co-founder of the Love, Hope, Strength Foundation, says, we established Love, Hope, Strength 2 decades ago here in the UK and the USA. My late husband, Mike, inspired fans of his music and his band, The Alarm, to get involved, and together we all harness support from across the music industry. Mike died last year, but his altruistic spirit lives on, and thanks to the strong partnerships we've developed with clinicians across the globe and beautiful friends like the members of Asia, we're still able to offer love, hope, and strength to the families that so need it when facing a cancer diagnosis. Thank you, all of you, from the bottom of my heart for your support. It means a lot, especially from the patients who will benefit from your generosity. All right, so that's really cool that that's happening. And I've already talked about the Asia acoustic thing that's happening. And they also have a few Japan shows coming up in about a week. So uh, yesterday or today, I saw that there was a video on the Visions and Fear YouTube channel, which is uh, basically it says it's John Wetton's final concert, and it's with the Matt Sinner Band and the Bohemian Symphony Orchestra in Prague. I think the video itself is less than 20 minutes. I'm gonna have to give it a watch, and I'll share my thoughts on it. I'm sure it's great, but yeah, I'm gonna talk a little bit about that when I go live again this Saturday, January 31st. And the reason for that is the 31st will be the anniversary of John Wetton's passing. So, want to remember him, talk about the the vinyl record I recently acquired, which I've mentioned before here on the show, the second Asia album, Alpha. So I'm going to do a Steven's Vinyl Adventures episode on that, and I'll share my thoughts on that John Wetton video as well. Gilly also says, cool, do you want to mention what you have sent to the Gottlieb brothers for their Yes Fans by Yes Fans book? So I haven't sent it yet. I know what it is. I just need to make sure that I do. Like, I'm pretty sure I know where it is, but yeah, I'll go look for it. I might actually do that tonight, just so so that I can get that sent in. But yeah, again, January 31st is the submission deadline for that Yes Fans book that the Gottlieb brothers are putting together. So keep it on your radar. Send in something if you want to and haven't yet. It'll be really amazing collection. Yeah, Gilly says you have 2 days. Yeah, I'm aware. Yeah, it's the January 28th as we're recording. So I'll get on that for sure. So that's it for now. I'll see you all on the 31st. I'm not sure yet if it'll be in the morning for me or around noon. There have just been some things that have been coming up at weird times, but I'll figure it out and post about it ahead of time. So thanks for tuning in, whether it be live or in the archive. You can follow at Yeshift via at Yeshift on Facebook and YouTube. You can write to us via yesshiftpodcast@gmail.com and search us at podcast app. You'll probably find us. So yeah, thanks for tuning in, and we'll see you all soon. Bye.